Hi, I'm Ashley. Today I decided to try out these watercolor canvases that I purchased at Hobby Lobby. I bought just these small ones first just to really test them out, and I'm going to do a series of kind of whimsical, colorful ocean animals on them. So the first one is a sea turtle. This little guy took me about 38 minutes to paint from start to finish, and that did include drying time. So this was actually pretty fast. I've sped it up about 3 times for this demonstration and kind of cut out some of that drying time just so that it's not quite as long. But I decided to go with pinks and purples for my turtle. The first thing I did is just get a basic shape of the shell, and I drop in some purple on one side to really start developing the direction of my light. So the right side of the turtle will be highlighted, the left side will be shadowed. And so I just dropped that in and then blended it out, but it was wet, so it didn't need a lot to blend it out. And then I go in and get the basic shapes of the head and the fins. And on these, I'm just doing this very light wash just to get a basic shape. Drop in a little color here and there just to get some variation, keep it interesting, but I'm just painting the basic shapes. I had done a kind of test version of the sea turtle in my sketchbook, so I am kind of looking at that for reference, but otherwise just focusing on big basic shapes at the beginning. So I just kind of blend that all out and drop in some of the purple on the head and the fins as well, and it's still all wet, so it's gonna just create a very soft blend just naturally. And then going in with just a little bit of a deeper color, kind of pulling some of that purple out a little bit farther into the shell, and then let it dry. Once it's all dried, I begin to add some details to the shell. So I start by literally just sketching with my paintbrush the hexagon shape, kind of the main one, and then I get in the like half hexagon shapes and get the line, like circle oval around the edge of the shell. So kind of the middle part of the shell is all those hexagons and half hexagons, and then there's a rim of kind of the edge of the shell. So I'm kind of refining that shape. I'm not too worried about it. I'm really just sketching it out, and then I go in and blend out some of those areas that I made some mistakes, and just adding some clean water and blending it out. It is just a more pigmented version of the same color of pink, so it blends out very nicely. And then while that's still damp, I add deeper values to create that rounded shape of the shell. So by making the kind of edges a little bit deeper, it creates that shadow, makes it look rounded. And I'm focusing on continuing to make the left side of the shell a deeper value than the right side. So the whole kind of rim is deeper value, but the left is even deeper than the right. While that all dries, I just add some linear detail on each of the fins. So I try to follow the curves of the fins while I'm adding these details. And again, trying to kind of look at where some of the darker values would be. So on the front fins, they're kind of curved. So there's like a shadowed part and then a highlighted part underneath where it's kind of folded over. I don't know if that's a good way to describe it, but that's the way I'm going to describe it because I don't know how else to. So after I do that, I just glaze some blue over the shell. So a glaze is just a very thin, like watery, limited pigment mix, and I'm using blue. So when I glaze the blue over the pink of the shell, it creates purple. So that just creates a nice blend there. And then I use some clean water just to blend out the edge of where I did the glazing so that it doesn't have any harsh lines. I use that similar technique on the fins here in a second to deepen the values and kind of shift the shadowy areas more toward purple instead of that lighter pink. So this is just a way to help define that shadow versus highlight, and keeping in kind of the middle the highlight, making it even lighter in the middle, creates kind of a shine on the shell. So on the head, I do that blue glaze, and I'm kind of trying to keep it a little bit kind of splotchy, because sea turtles kind of on their heads have a splotchy pattern. So I did look at references of real sea turtles when I was developing this concept for this painting, and then changed the colors and a little bit, simplified the shapes a little bit to make it more this whimsical fantasy sea turtle. So I continue to build up the layers here with the glazing and just slowly add more and more value. So just making it deeper values as I go, but making sure I'm preserving those highlight areas so that it creates that rounded highlight shape. So on the head, while it is still damp, I lift out some areas to create that splotchy pattern. It's subtle, it's kind of like soft, it's not really defined, but by lifting out those highlight areas, you can see that pattern a little bit. So while it's still damp, I add in deeper values just to those kind of splotchy areas that I had defined by lifting out, and that'll kind of blend and do its own thing to create the effect that I want. And then again, just another layer of glazing on the shell and the fins. And this, I say slowly, it wasn't really slow. This painting did not take very long, but layer by layer, just building. So for the background, I went with Prussian blue to create the ocean. And so this will contrast to the more like ultramarine purpley blue in the turtle. The background's more of a greeny blue. And I started with just a basic wash around the whole turtle, and it's a messy wash. I did not try to make it nice and even because I really wanted to get variation in the value. I didn't want it to be a nice smooth wash. So I didn't worry if some of it dried faster and there was weird like little cauliflower lines and variations in color. I didn't worry about it because that was the look that I was going for. And I really was happy with how that first wash turned out. And while it's still wet, I drop in a more pigmented, kind of less watery version of that same Prussian blue on the shadow side of the turtle. And that creates the turtle's shadow in the water. And again, because it's wet and wet, it's going to blend out softly. And then I just get some watery Prussian blue and add some splatters, focusing the darker splatters on the left side of the turtle. And then I get actually clean water and do splatters of clean water on the right side. And while it's still wet, the clean water will kind of repel and push the pigment away to create some highlight areas in the water. So again, just continuing to build up those shadows. And I did splatter some pink onto the turtle shell also, and I'll kind of soften that a little bit, but I did want to create a little bit of texture on the turtle itself to kind of pull it into the background a little bit more. I don't know if that makes sense, but I wanted to have similar textures in the turtle and in the water. So here I'm just glazing in a bit more blues and purples into the turtle, because with adding the shadow on the left side in the water, I felt like there wasn't quite enough contrast with the darks in the turtle. So I wanted to deepen them up even more and pull them toward that purple tone and just get nice deep values. So here's where you see I am blending out some of those splatters, but it still has that texture on the shell. So once the background was pretty much all the way dry, I added some more splatters so that they would stay more defined and not diffuse out as it does when the background is wet. So if you add the splatters while it's dry, they'll stay little dots instead of getting that kind of diffused out soft edge look. So overall, I was extremely happy with this little turtle. This painting turned out actually exactly how I envisioned it. And so I hope you really enjoyed watching this. Check out my channel for even more content. Thanks. Have an awesome day.